Okay, now we're going to get started with the next session here, and we're going to talk about a variety of different things that speak to the whole thing about critical thinking as well as manipulation. And so we start this session off by talking about sheeple. What is sheeple? Sheeple is a term used to describe people who act more like sheep than humans, and so they kind of like follow the crowd and they just do what they're told, and they're not making any contributions to the group. They accept what others say or do. They don't ever challenge. They don't question. And so we need to learn from others and gain the knowledge for ourselves. Otherwise, we do run the risk of becoming a sheeple. And so it's important that when you're having dialogue, especially with your spouse or your friends or your children, that you really recognize and you're aware, am I just going along with everybody because I want to fit in? Or am I really making a contribution to what they're saying? Do I even need to make a contribution? But yeah, I agree, but I whatever. Okay, so do you follow me what I'm saying about this? So I want you to go through these statements or these questions and answer them again very honestly. And so we're going to learn about what it means to be really self-directed in our thoughts and taking ownership of our thoughts. Groupthink is another expression that we have when it comes to manipulation. And groupthink occurs when there's pressures to agree with the group or a leader because they tend to be very strong or charismatic. And we're willing to support bad decisions because we don't want to be ousted from the group. And so this happens frequently in corporations. This happens frequently in churches. This happens frequently in friendships and families because we're like, well, if I say something, they're not going to agree with what I say. And guess what? I'm going to be out. And I really love this group and I want to be part of this group so much that I'm willing just to ignore the obvious. And I believe it was the Voyager shuttle that went up. It was either Voyager or Challenger that when it was sent up, and the one that exploded, and it was such a tragedy that occurred. And what ultimately ended up happening is the engineers said there was a small defect in an O-ring, which was part of the mechanics of this shuttle. And they complained about it to NASA, but there was a lot of pressure. We're on a deadline. We've got to get this thing out. You know, we want to continue to move forward. And instead of absolutely saying, no, we're not going to do it, people might die, they went along with it. And so that's actually a huge study that's been performed about groupthink. And so you need to really think about who you're associating with, because healthy relationships are huge when it comes to your well-being, your quality of life, and how you're going to move into your purpose. And if you are really finding the pressures of Maslow's love and belonging really constricting your views, then it's an indicator to you that you need to back off a little bit and say, I need to rethink these relationships that I have because I don't want to be part of a group just because I think this group is popular and I want to be, you know, known that I'm part of this popular group. Now, foreclosure is something very interesting. Foreclosures is a term used for individuals who, when they are, and it usually happens during their adolescent period, they without question accept everything that they're told that they're supposed to believe. And so while this can be good if it's healthy information and teaching children to think for themselves, it's a bad idea if we say this is the way it is, always will be, and always has been, and if you move away from this, you're not going to be part of our group. You're going to be, you know, the black sheep of the family, and you don't want to be that because you don't want our family to disown you or disregard you. And so foreclosure means that you no longer are willing to test the information that you have that you've always believed in. And so let me tell you, it's a very good thing and it's healthy if you test everything from your faith to your culture to your relationships to, you know, gender to all of these things. It's really important for you to take a really good look at this and say, okay, what have I been taught and what do I believe with that? And should I challenge these things? Have I always believed this one way because I was taught to believe this way? Am I regurgitating information that I was taught when really it doesn't have a lot of value and I can actually show there's another side to it? And so it's important for you to test those ideas, because what often happens is people do learn a certain way of thinking, And then they go out into the world and they realize, oh my gosh, you know, I was wrong, and how am I going to process that through if I don't have other people who are healthy to say, hey, you know, actually, you're on the right track with what you're thinking. Because remember, we're not clones. And foreclosure produces clones. All of these things, sheeple is a clone. Peer pressure can be a clone. Groupthink means that you're a clone. We don't want to be a clone, because if we are, then we're not making an individual contribution that might shed light on a problem that could really solve something that could be really phenomenal. And so after you go through these pages, then I want you to complete it with this one. We all experience pressures in our life. I mean, and that's just the way life is. But they're never designed to limit your free will or be able to make healthy choices. And so you've looked at a few of these pressures, and let's see if you can identify them, or see if you can actually avoid them, and how you can be aware of them, because part of the whole personal growth is self-awareness. I'm aware of my personality. Now I'm aware of the critical thinking. Do I have an opinion or a fact? Now I need to be aware of really where I'm coming from in terms of my associations with other people. Okay, so spend some time with this and talk about it with people close to you, and really walk through this and apply this to your personal life and see what happens. Because I can promise you that if you're able to identify some of these things that you've been, I'll use the word victimized with, then it's time for you to move out of that. Because the investment model says that I'm going to be an independent thinker, that I can make a contribution, and I don't have to agree with you. You know, I just don't. I can make something that's useful, that can help us to move forward and be better people. Okay, wonderful, excellent. See you at the next session.